The US Open mixed doubles tournament is unfortunately slowly going downhill. I think it was mostly expected, but I also think this warrants a larger conversation around the ATP schedule. For starters, a lot of these players signed up for this tournament probably just to chase a bag, and now they're realizing that they're fucking exhausted and they still want to compete at the highest level during the US Open singles tournament. Like, Carlos and Yannick are about to play the Cincinnati final tomorrow, and then round one of the doubles was supposed to start on Tuesday. And I'm sure there's a world in which they considered just playing the finals, playing the doubles, and then playing the US Open singles tournament. But there's so much on the line in this major, regardless of what happens in the Cincinnati finals. That world number one ranking is up for grabs, and they're both fully aware of that. But beyond that, like I said, there's a larger conversation to have around the schedule of the ATP and why you see a lot of players just absolutely burn out after the Wimbledon, Canada, Cincinnati run. Tennis is such a physically demanding sport, and it's so much faster and more aggressive nowadays than it was like 20 years ago. It's a lot more difficult for players to play and compete at the highest level for the first 6 months of the year and then remain consistent through the back half of the year. Even someone as great as Carlos Alcaraz, who has historically underperformed after Wimbledon, takes such a toll on the body to remain that consistent and that high level in a sport that is so physically demanding. But back to my scheduling comment. Here are some changes that I think genuinely need to be considered in order to make this schedule significantly more tolerable. And we're going to start with Cincinnati. And I don't mean to shit on Cincinnati right now, but why the fuck is this an ATP 1000? This should be a 500, and I mean that with all due respect. Post Wimbledon, going from Canada 1000 to Cincinnati 1000 to a week later US Open Grand Slam, that's just ridiculous. There's just absolutely no need for that. And Cincinnati, unfortunately, is like the weird middle ground where it's like, why are you right here? Why are you a week after Toronto and a week before the US Open? Remove Cincinnati, make it a 500, and this is where I'll get controversial. Snap over to Australia and make this a 1000. I've never liked the idea of immediately throwing tennis players into a Grand Slam the first month of a year. So Cincinnati is a 500, Australia is a 1000, and boom, Indian Wells, Grand Slam. You give players January and February to play the 1000 in Australia, plus a couple of 500s, and then March hits and the year kicks off, and that's where the first hardcourt major of the year happens, followed right into Miami. And I genuinely think that would fix the problem of this scheduling. No one will feel pressure to play Cincinnati. Everyone will be nice and relaxed after Canada going into the US Open. And while I'm on scheduling, I don't like this. I don't like that Paris is a 1000. Paris doesn't deserve a Grand Slam and a 1000 tournament. Turn Basel into 1000.